Good evening, Space Monkeys, and welcome to BlueHighwind's series of podcast sort of thingies known as Freelancing, a weekly series in which I talk into a microphone, post it on YouTube, put a very vague background there, and discuss something nerdy. And there we go. That's pretty much it. That's what freelancing is. You know what it is. You know where to go. Like, comment, subscribe. Also, we flub lines here, because that's like hipster-ish or something. Anyway, this week's topic is, I guess you could easily guess what it's going to be, Godzilla. Because on Friday, the new Godzilla movie came out. The Legendary Pictures Godzilla, which, unfortunately, I did not like. And you could just call me a hater. You could say I hate everything. I don't. I like lots of things. I like the new Spider-Man movie. And of course, the reaction you're going to have after that is, oh, BlueHighwind, you're just an idiot. Why would I listen to you? Well, sometimes idiots have wisdom too. Even though I think the definition of idiot is that they have no wisdom of any kind. But don't worry about that. Just listen to me, because I got a sexy voice, and you're going to enjoy what I have to say. Because we're talking about Godzilla, king of the monsters, the big green giant going around wrecking Tokyo. Even though technically he's not really green, he's mostly sort of a muddy brown charcoal color. Except for in a few movies like Godzilla 2000 where he actually was green, but don't worry about that. See, I'm the kind of man who likes Godzilla enough that I can go and discuss little stupid minutiae, such as Godzilla's color in particular movies. At least it's not gray. Now, when you look at the 2014 movie, I have to say it's extremely competent. And I'm kind of condescending when I'm saying that it's really competent, but unfortunately I just really didn't like it. It just didn't feel like a movie that actually understood what a giant monster movie is supposed to be. Now, generally, in the last 10 years or so, American movies have been redefining what giant monster movies are. The old style, which goes all the way back to King Kong and before, is giant monster comes in, destroys the place, dies tragically. We respect the giant monster. We consider them noble creatures that we just don't understand, but we come to love them. They're the stars. But it's been we're pushing out the giant monsters lately. We've decided, you know what, we don't want to focus on the giant monsters. We want to focus on the people getting trampled. Unfortunately, that's just not going to cut it, especially when you happen to decide to star your movie, such as Godzilla 2014, with the most boring protagonist of all time. Which means the movie is just unwatchable, basically. Godzilla's there. He has a few awesome moments. When he goes and he French kisses another monster with his laser breath, you know, people start to celebrate at that point. But the movie just wasn't interested in Godzilla. It was a Godzilla movie in name only. Which is fine if you're not a Godzilla fan and you just want to see a well-made action movie made by Gareth Edwards, then go ahead. I mean, I don't know how many Gareth Edwards fans there are, but, you know, if you are a Gareth Edwards fan and this is what you want to see, there you go. He delivers on his Gareth Edwards-ness. However, I am a Godzilla fan. I've been a Godzilla fan my entire life. This was not something I had by choice. It was something I was born into. I am a second-generation Godzilla fan. Actually, maybe even a third-generation Godzilla fan. My entire family is hugely into giant monster movies, and have been ever since my mom and her little brother, my uncle, used to go and sit up in the 1970s and watch shitty old horror movies on the television. And one of the most popular ones that network TVs used to air was Godzilla and King Kong. Famously, my uncle cried very desperately and very adorably, because he was about 10 years old, in the 70s remake of King Kong, and my grandma has never stopped mocking him since. So, when Godzilla came out this Friday, we made it an event. It was on Thursday night. Unfortunately, the event kind of got screwed up, because ultimately it was only me, my mom, and my cousin who wound up going to see it. But steadily everyone else in our family have gone to see it. And they all kind of like it except for me, because I'm the only film critic in the family, so my opinion counts as virtually nothing, because critics are always wrong, and we're idiots, and we hate everything. Of course. But, you know, considering that, you have to look at my perspective. So I've seen nearly every single Godzilla movie. I love giant monster movies. I love Godzilla. If anyone was to ask me what my hero is personally, I'd have to go and say the big radioactive monster that's wrecking Japanese towns. It's just, I just like him. I think he's cool. He's the epitome of cool. There's nothing cooler than Godzilla. And if you have a movie where Godzilla has no personality, he doesn't really do anything, it's just kind of like perfunctory that he's there, the movie keeps fucking cutting away from all of Godzilla's fights, I get really mad. In fact, I get furiously mad, which is why Gareth Edwards' 2014 Godzilla, we're not even talking about it. We're done with that. That happened. We're going to ignore it now. What we're going to talk about is the good Godzilla movies. The great Godzilla movies. The classics. Of which I have 7. Because of the 30 Godzilla movies, ultimately, let's be honest, most of them aren't very good. They're all kind of Toho B movies. Even the modern ones were made for under $10 million. These were pretty cheap. And by the 1970s, they got really cheap. They were basically wrestling matches in the movie theater for Japanese kids, and for kids all around the world. Because Godzilla really is for the kids. You have to remember that. They have to stay fun. But they could be a lot of things. There's a lot of tones, there's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of concepts floating around. Godzilla means a lot to a lot of different people. And there have been a lot of different artistic takes on it. Which is why Gareth Edwards' idea, I don't agree with. I think it's incredibly stupid. But I think it has its place. And you can like it and you can not like it. I'm going to talk about movies that I do like. And as I mentioned before, most Godzilla movies actually aren't very good. Secretly. This is kind of a little hidden secret amongst kaiju fans. Most of the movies we watch are frankly terrible. So you kind of have to judge them on their own merits. Because, I can kind of like a movie like Godzilla vs. Destroyer, which is a really hard monster name to pronounce. But let's be honest, it's really slow. The human characters are boring and don't do anything. They all kind of have these same problems. But these 7 I'm going to bring up, these ones are special. These are the cream of the crop. These are the ones that really, I think, represent what Godzilla is all about. They're just the best of this entire series. Out of all about 30 that have come out, these are the ones that you should see. If you've never seen a Godzilla movie before, if you've only seen the Gareth Edwards ones, go watch one of these 7. And for once, I'm actually going in ascending order, which is rare for me. And we're going to start with Godzilla Final Wars from 2004, directed by Ryuhei Kitamura. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not good with Japanese. I come from New Jersey. We don't have many Japanese people here. We do have a lot of sushi restaurants, though, including an all-you-can-eat sushi place in Princeton, which I recommend. Anyway, Godzilla Final Wars was made for the 50th anniversary of Godzilla, I believe, and it was the very last Japanese Godzilla movie ever made. This is a movie made to go and celebrate the entire genre. Everything that Toho had done, all their giant monsters came back because, frankly, Godzilla has waned in popularity in Japan as time has gone by. They've taken a lot of breaks in the franchise and have kind of been trying to pass it over to the Americans, because I think Godzilla might be more popular in the West than he is in Japan. So Godzilla Final Wars was around the time the Toho accountants kind of realized, we can't keep doing these Godzilla movies. And really, the turn of the millennium Godzilla movies have always been trying to reinvent it, and they all had their own tone, they all had their own storyline. So Godzilla Final Wars was the final massive explosion of everything they could possibly do. They threw everything at this movie. And it's ridiculous. It is completely over the top, this movie. It's a mixture of giant monsters. It has all of the giant monsters. Basically, 90% of all of Toho's giant monsters, they're in this movie. Godzilla fights all of them. But not only that, it has X-Men. There's mutant humans who have, developed. They're like new types or something. And they go around and they have Matrix fights. And then a race of aliens flying a golden Death Star comes down, mind controls the monsters to go and fight everybody. And now it's Star Wars all of a sudden, because the mutants are flying little spaceships and they're fighting, and it's everything. It's all these things. You got X-Men, Godzilla, Star Wars. Am I missing one? Matrix, of course. 4 things. Basically, anything that was considered cool in 2004, they threw it into this movie, and it is so over the top. It's completely unoriginal. It's a perfect B movie in a lot of ways. Now, There are a few, well-meaning Japanese main characters, but they're not all that great. It's just kind of a guy with a high forehead going and beating people up in kung fu scenes. It's actually one of the better human characterizations of any Godzilla film, but the really great, like the very best acting comes from a man known as Don Fry, who is, as you could guess, not Japanese. He plays Captain Douglas Gordon, who looks all the world like Chef Boyardee, who commands a flying screw battleship. Yes, a flying screw battleship. The Gotengo. This is a long-running Toho trope. It's kind of this flying ship with a screw on the top of it. It's been back for 50 years. This is not even a Godzilla-related thing. They just kind of threw it in there. And basically what he's playing is Vic Morrow's character in Message from Space. Oh wait, none of you have any idea what Message from Space is. Message from Space is a late 70s, I think it was also Toho, Star Wars ripoff, which is really awesome. A lot of great miniature work, and Vic Morrow kicks fucking ass in that movie. So if you ever want to see a bad Star Wars ripoff that's a lot of fun, Message from Space. And speaking of bad movies that are a lot of fun, Godzilla Final Wars. Another really good actor in this is Kazuki Kitamura, who is playing the Zillion Commander, who I guess the best way to describe him is that he's Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. He's just a lot more handsome and still kind of has clown makeup for some reason. So this guy, he's this big, hammy villain for everyone to fight. And I guess if there's any complaints of Godzilla Final Wars is, even though there's a lot of monsters in it, there's so much going on in this movie. This movie's so over the top that there really isn't that much Godzilla in it. And the fights kind of suck. Godzilla just kind of walks up and he destroys whatever's in front of him. The last fight's pretty good. He fights a new monster called X, which transforms into King Ghidorah, because it has to be King Ghidorah. And that's pretty cool. So, Godzilla Final Wars. It was meant to be the glass hurrah. I don't know how good of a movie it is straight up, but it's definitely watchable, and it is a trip. It's just a big old feast. It's like, if you ever go and watch a Bollywood action movie, it's like one of those. It's just so over the top. It's just trying to thrill you no matter what, and you have to respect that. Moving on, the sixth best Godzilla film is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, directed by Jun Fakunda in 1974. This was the second to last of the original run of Godzilla films, which went from 1954 to 1977, I think it is. This is known as the Showa series, named after Emperor Showa, who you might know as Emperor Hirohito. He got renamed after he died. That's a Japanese tradition. I'm not sure what that means 100%, but it has some sort of religious symbolic thing, which I guess you could respect. But anyway, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is, at this point, the movies had stopped being serious, and it's hard to believe at some point Godzilla was a serious thing. It was serious for maybe 2 movies, I'm guessing. 1, really, let's be honest. But it had gotten really not serious. Because the previous ones were Godzilla vs. Gigan, where Godzilla fights Gigan in a theme park themed after Godzilla. Very goofy thing. And then Godzilla vs. Megalon. This is probably the goofiest of all the Godzilla movies. This is one where he teams up with a robot called Jet Jaguar, who originally was human-sized, but then reprogrammed himself to be giant. And he fought an alien that was summoned by sea peoples. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is still pretty goofy. The evil aliens that are invading the Earth, and in the Showa series, it's always evil aliens invading the Earth. These are apes, for Planet of the Apes, who come from the third planet of a black hole. Exactly what the hell that means, I'm not really sure. But what they've built is the ultimate weapon to fight Godzilla. A Mechagodzilla! Very simple. So, in walks a monster that looks like Godzilla. He comes up, and Godzilla's friend, Anguillus, a classic monster going all the way back from Godzilla Raids Again. These two are really good friends, and then Mechagodzilla kills the fucking shit out of him. It's really dark. He rips the guy's throat open. And then Godzilla fights Mechagodzilla. And this is, of the Showa, just kind of silly brawl movies, I think this is one of the better ones. It's got a lot to it, there's a lot of monster fights. The humans, I don't even remember who they were. who cares who they were? But the idea of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla is just really cool, and the reason why this is on this list is because, number one, I think it's a pretty good, entertaining movie. If you want something from the 70s, like, really trashy but fun, this is up there. But why this is on this list is because this was one of the Godzilla movies I grew up with. When I was a kid, we had 3 Godzilla VHSs. One was Godzilla vs. Gigan, one was Godzilla vs. King Kong, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. And this was my favorite then. It's one of my favorites still today. Very good. Number 5 is when people are going to look at me a little strange. In fact, I suspect I will be killed shortly after this if there are not assassins already placed outside my house. Get ready for it. Godzilla, the Roland Emmerich movie from 1998. Yes, the TriStar Godzilla. Yes, the Godzilla that the fans and Toho retroactively named Zilla, because it took the god out of Godzilla. That one. The Matthew Broderick one. The one that turned into a Jurassic Park ripoff in the 3rd act. The one with Mayor Roger Ebert. The 1998 Godzilla movie. I think it's better than the 2014 one, and I think it's one of the best Godzilla films. Now, hear me out. Godzilla fans despise this movie, and Toho despises this movie. Everyone pretty much. It's fashionable to hate this movie. It's like Batman and Robin. You're supposed to hate it. Even though Batman and Robin, actually a really good movie, I think. It's a lot of fun. I'd go and watch it. You will laugh. You'll laugh your ass off, and that's great. It's fun. It's a great bad movie. Godzilla 1998 is what you'd expect if you make a Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie. Roland Emmerich is a man who doesn't take his films very seriously unless he's going on some liberal diatribe, and usually he does it so ham-fistedly you're not sure if it's a self-parody or not. There is no liberal diatribes in this one. Godzilla just comes to New York and gets in Hank Azaria's way, pretty much, as far as I can tell. Godzilla's redesign is generally hated, because he doesn't really destroy too much in this movie. He's the only monster, and for some reason people don't like Godzilla being alone. They don't think he can carry a movie by himself. You're not a true Godzilla fan if you say that, by the way. You're a piece of shit. You quizzling asshole! Godzilla 1998, actually really good. Amongst human characterization of any Godzilla film, this is the best. Matthew Broderick is probably not the most manly of manliness, but he's not supposed to be an action movie star. That's kind of where Jean Reno comes in. Jean Reno's in this movie. What's up with that? Anyway, he's just a scientist who goes and studies Godzilla. And Godzilla does, admittedly, look like a big iguana. He does eat a lot of fish. He's actually a she and gives birth to eggs. Or lays eggs. You don't actually see that. In fact, the movie kind of flip-flops about that idea. It's not sure if Godzilla's female or if Godzilla reproduces asexually. Which I consider to be, I can understand a nuclear mix-up turning an iguana gigantic. But as for it reprogramming its entire sexuality, how... Iguanas don't go under parthenogenesis, do they? If it was a giant shark, I could see... Whatever, who fucking cares? I'm getting caught up in the details. The 1998 Godzilla, it's not much of a Godzilla film if you're interested only in the canon of who Godzilla is. It's like, Godzilla has to look one specific way, he has to act one specific way, he has to do X amount of damage, he has to be so much strong, the power level has to be really specific. This is easily the weakest Godzilla. He only breathes fire once, and I'm not entirely sure if he actually did, or if it just so happened that he breathed on a car that was on fire. Most of the time, Godzilla just runs away from the U.S. Army, which makes sense, but I consider this to be a fantastic action movie, and Godzilla, unlike the 2014 movie, it's actually a solid monster movie. He gives an emotive performance. And Godzilla is a performance, by the way. If you ever say Godzilla is just a man in a suit, the man in the suit, that's a real actor. Alright, let me find the guy's name. It's, Haru Nakajima was the first actor to play Godzilla in 1954, and ever since, if you're the man in the suit, you're an actor, you're a professional, you're doing a job. Now, the 1998 Godzilla might just be CG, but they kept Godzilla cool. It still seems like he has characterization, he has personality. When they wind up killing all of his baby velociraptors, he's really depressed, you know? And his final death scene where he gets caught on the Brooklyn Bridge and his heart slowly stops. Complete ripoff from King Kong, to be fair. But that's a touching scene. That's really sad. And the fact that there's all this characterization, that the movie's pretty unserious, is a lot of just New York, I don't know if it's anti-New York or just New York stereotypes, but, you know, it's all there. And it's watchable. It's fun. You know what? Go watch the 1998 Godzilla. Just watch it. Put away your preconceptions. Stop being such a fanboy for a moment. I know I was being a fanboy before when I hated the 2014 one, but there's reasons for that. I think the 1998 one is a better movie. It looks worse. Special effects have aged like shit. You would not believe how bad Godzilla looks these days, because it's 98 CG. I don't know why you would base a movie on that, but it still just kind of just holds up. And Hank Azaria is there. How many movies have Hank Azaria in it? And he's great in this, by the way. So the next one is Godzilla 2000, directed by Takao Okawara. I really am sorry about these Japanese names. And despite the fact that it's called Godzilla 2000, it actually came out in 1999. Now, Godzilla 2000 has a special place in my heart, because it's one of 3 Godzilla films I've seen in a theater. One is the Roland Emmerich one is the 2014 one, just this Friday, and then there's Godzilla 2000. Now, this was made after Toho saw the Roland Emmerich movie, and their reaction was, oh god, oh fuck no. Oh god, they freaked the hell out. And they realized, you know, we have to get a Godzilla movie in theaters right now as damage control. Because they hated it, and I can understand why they would hate it. So Godzilla 2000, it was kind of rushed out, but this movie really just sort of rocks. I'm going to be straight up right here. Because, one thing, if you're going to watch a Godzilla movie, I recommend the English dubbing pretty much every time. I'll specify when you don't watch the English dubbing. The Godzilla 2000's English dub actually completely outclasses the Japanese one because the editing is so much stronger this time. They cut out a lot of bullshit and fluff, and they made the movie funny, which unfortunately the later Japanese Godzilla films just kind of got a little too serious. I mean, there's the one thing you could say about the old Showa movies, which is where, like, Godzilla would laugh and he would dance. He had a victory dance. It's hard to believe this looking at the Gareth Edwards movie where Godzilla does nothing at all, but yeah, he danced, he laughs, he cries. He at one point does a flying drop kick. I can't even describe how insane that is. In Godzilla vs. Megalon, he floats across the screen and at one point he used his breath as a rocket to go and shoot himself across the country. That was Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Smog Monster. Anyway, Godzilla 2000 is one of the more serious ones. It had a new suit. It was the start of a brand new Godzilla series known as the Millennium series. But I think this movie's really, really good. It could be because I saw it in theaters, but I think a lot of the dubbing wound up making it just the perfect amount of cheesy to keep you interested. So, for example, there's one line such as, "These missiles will go through Godzilla like crap through a goose." There you go. Or another line, "There's a piece of Godzilla in all of us." Ain't that the truth? There's a piece of Godzilla in all of us. You know what? If you're ever feeling down, let's look to your inner Godzilla. As for positive acting, one of the best Godzilla performances in general is Hiroshi Abe as Commander Mitsuo Katagiri, who is a kind of axe-crazy general trying to kill Godzilla, who, at the very end, decides that he's going to confront the big dinosaur himself, and then Godzilla blasts the fuck out of him, which is awesome. The enemy this time for Godzilla 2000 is a spaceship that comes from space, as spaceships are wont to do, and it lands, and everyone's trying to examine it. They're like, is there aliens inside of it? No, there are not aliens inside of it. The spaceship itself is an alien. Called Orga. It eventually grabs Godzilla DNA and transforms into a giant monster, one of the cooler looking ones, and then Godzilla and Orga have a big ass fight, and that's really cool. Another thing Godzilla 2000 comes up with is the idea that Godzilla is effectively immortal, because at this point there have been like 25 movies, and at the end of them, most of the time Godzilla died. And it's like, how the hell does he keep coming back? Oh, well, he's effectively immortal. There you go. That's fine. There we go. We got that. So, Godzilla 2000, pretty good stuff. Number 3, Godzilla 1985. Koji Hashimoto, actually made in 1984, and the Japanese release calls it just Godzilla. It's also known as Return of Godzilla and Godzilla the Legend Reborn or some crap like that. I call it Godzilla 1985 because that's what the VHS said when I rented it. This came after a short break in Godzilla films. There was Terror of Mechagodzilla, and then they decided, we've overburdened the brand. We've had too many Godzilla films. We need to take a break. So 7 or 8 years later, they came out with this. So they have a new Godzilla suit. There's a new look. The animatronics are better. There's a bigger budget. The miniatures are way better. This is what Godzilla is going to look like in the modern age, and it really did do a great job of sweeping Godzilla into a new form, showing what special effects could do. And Godzilla 1985, really, really good, I think, as a film. It's, again, Godzilla just himself is walking into Tokyo and destroying the place, as he's wont to do. There's no real monsters for him to fight, except very, very early in the film, a bunch of sailors get attacked by flying sea fleas or mosquitoes or something. They're like 3 feet big and they eat everybody. I don't remember what the hell was up with that. What happens is that Godzilla decides to pop up in the middle Pacific and he eats a Soviet submarine. And this being the Cold War, right around the time of Rocky IV, when tensions were really high because the Russians were really pissed that Ivan Drago lost. But they got really mad, the Soviets, in this movie, and they decide when Godzilla shows up in Tokyo, they're going to nuke Tokyo and start World War III. So there's an addition of a Cold War message in here. And luckily, America does save the day by firing a missile and blocking it, because Reagan's Star Wars program works. Yes, the 80s were awesome. But what I really like about Godzilla 1985 is, for one, Godzilla is really cool in this, and his attack on Tokyo is one of the probably second best rampage of all Godzilla films. The fact that Raymond Burr returns. Raymond Burr is, as you know, well, maybe you don't know, he was included in the Americanization of the very first Godzilla film. He was called Steve Martin. Steve Martin was an American reporter who just showed up in Tokyo at the time and was awkwardly stitched into the movie. Like, this guy didn't actually exist. He wasn't interacting with any other characters, but they just kind of threw him in there, so it was like they'd have back and forth scenes, even though clearly Raymond Burr is not actually talking to any of these other people. It was awkward, but for one thing, Raymond Burr is a great actor, and this might be like one of his best performances ever. Even though he doesn't really do anything in this movie, he's just kind of called in by American generals who are watching this on their TV. Because he was there for the first Godzilla rampage, might as well get him in there. And he just kind of stands around and looks really sullen. He adds this really deep air of, like, respect and honor to this film, I guess is the word. Which is funny, because all the characters he's interacting with are a dipshit, brown-haired, well, actually ginger general, and a insane amount of Dr. Pepper product placement. The American version of this film has some of the most blatant, just painfully blatant product placement ever. 2 generals walk down a hallway. In the middle between them the entire time is a Dr. Pepper machine. In the final scene, most reprehensively, you'll see 2 generals going and opening up a cola can of Dr. Pepper. Please, don't do that. That's, oh my god, that's horrible. And the final scene is one of the most emotional in all Godzilla films, because Godzilla gets tricked and he falls into a volcano. It sounds really goofy, but then there's the just amazing soundtrack, just like really just a gorgeous, gorgeous theme written by Akira Ifukube. Akira Ifukube. I'm really sorry, I respect you so much as a musician, it's just that I can't pronounce your name. Anyway, this really, really touching scene starts airing, and everybody in the movie just kind of stops and watches and are really depressed. And of all people, the Prime Minister of Japan, who just had his capital city smashed to bits, the guy is completely bawling his eyes out. It really caught me. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna cry. The little Japanese man is losing it completely. So, Godzilla 1985, really good one. I'd watch this. Leading up to number 2, Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack! The longest Godzilla title by far. It is directed by Shusuke Kaneko, and it came out in 2001. Now, what this movie is wonderful. I love this movie. It's less emotional than kind of the other ones I kind of put up there. The human characters are pointless. I'm not even going to bother talking about them. There's a general who rides a submarine at the end and kills Godzilla. Who cares? But what this is it was kind of a new interpretation of Godzilla, because at some point they decided Godzilla was going to be a good guy. And he's been a good guy for pretty much all his movies, even in 1985, where that was probably his most villainous in years. He was mostly just like a misunderstood lizard dinosaur or whatever. But this one, he's a fucking bad guy. He is a demon. In fact, what he is he is the living embodiment of everybody who was killed in the Pacific Theater of World War II, come for revenge at Japan. Which is really, really dark. I mean, wow, that is dark. So Godzilla has no eyes. He's just this walking monster. I mean, he has eyes, but there's no pupils or anything. He's just a monster. He's just here to completely wreck everything. And to save Japan comes guardian monsters, which were Mothra, King Ghidorah, and a third one called Baragon, who Godzilla kills instantly. That guy sucks. He wouldn't even warrant getting in the title. Who cares about him? But what this movie is Godzilla kicking ass from beginning to end. It's really tense. There's some great monster fights in this. So it starts off, Godzilla kills Baragon. Then he kills Mothra. Then he kills King Ghidorah, but then King Ghidorah comes back, and Godzilla kills him again, for good measure. Then he gets taken out by a submarine. It's ridiculous at the end. But you know what? I gotta say, this movie flows brilliantly. It's like a lot of these Godzilla movies, they have their slow points, especially when it's like humans and talking. Not so much in this one. You can just sit down and watch it. It is fantastic. And it's dark. Dark as hell. And really, if you want to see Godzilla just win, that's all that happens, because Godzilla being awesome, 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 Godzilla GMK, as it's shortened, because that is one hell of a long title, something I'd check out. And that leads us to number 1. And you could probably have guessed what it's going to be. It's simply Godzilla. 1954, also known as Gojira. It was directed by Ishiro Honda. Now, people call this Gojira because, to separate it from Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was the 1956 US release with Raymond Burr. So having 2 movies called Godzilla is really confusing, as compared to the 4 that we have now. Yeah. Or 5, if you count Godzilla King of the Monsters as a separate film. I mean, there's 5 films named Godzilla. This one, Raymond Burr version, 1985, the 1998 Roland Emmerich film, Godzilla 2000 technically, you could throw that in there too, and the 2014 Gareth Edwards one. That's a lot of Godzilla films. Talk about being chronologically confused. But anyway, why is the 1954 one, the original, the black and white one, the very best? It was really just a stunningly, just brilliantly made movie. All of these have kind of their element of cheese, you kind of have to get in the right mindset. You're gonna have to accept a little bit of goofiness here and there, badly made bits, all these places. Godzilla 1954 wasn't that. It was a completely serious production, and I have to say, out of all the disaster films I've seen, this one managed to catch the emotions and the horror and the just incomprehensibility of surviving a major, major disaster like that perfectly. Out of all the films, you think a movie about a dinosaur destroying Tokyo would just be cheesy as hell, but like the aftermath, the emotional, you just completely lost. I have to always compare it back to the days right after 9/11. I mean, we all lived through that. I was in Bayonne, New Jersey, so I actually could see the towers fall. I mean, I didn't see them fall. I just saw them smoking. But like you're right there. It wasn't nearly as bad as what Godzilla does to Tokyo in this film, but I mean, this is the one that really caught those emotions the best. Like, there have been films that have really tried their hardest. There was the Steven Spielberg War of the Worlds, which was really, really pandering to the whole terrorism thing. I don't think it quite gets the emotional just terror of this film. And odd, again, it's just Godzilla just coming around and destroying the place. And despite the fact this one has some of the goofiest looking effects, there's one scene where Godzilla's like a hand puppet, and you will laugh your ass off at that. He looks kind of odd in this movie. His breath isn't like his fire laser breath. Like it isn't a laser. It's just like a cloud that he shoots out that sort of sets things on fire. But he burns all of Tokyo down, and it really just like it's shockingly dark. This movie. You'll sit there and you're like, oh, it's Godzilla goofiness. Here we go. And then you watch this and you're like, holy shit. I'm completely humbled here. Really, really good acting, by the way, from two actors who I feel like should get special notice. Akihiko Harada as Dr. Daisuke Serizawa. He's the one-eyed doctor who goes and discovers the cure for Godzilla, the oxygen destroyer, and sacrifices his life to get rid of the monster and to go and wipe out yet another super weapon. And Takashi Shimura, who is an Akira Kurosawa alum, as Dr. Yohei Yamane, who's kind of this elderly scientist guy who adds a respectability to the film. One of the great things about this movie is that it was made only decades, like only a single decade, really, after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And you can kind of see that this movie was a reaction to that. There's a lot of anti-nuclear stuff to this. And I mean, of course, Japan's going to be anti-nuclear, considering all that they've suffered through. But it was like a really just, look at what we've done to ourselves kind of movie. I think it was great. I think it was kind of a necessary movie that Japan needed to make as kind of closure on the entire World War II disasters, because Tokyo really did burn down during World War II. Hiroshima was not the worst of catastrophes the United States brought upon Japan in that war, but, I mean, I just really, you gotta go and put this up as like a gold standard of something that's way above. This is one of the best giant monster films ever made. It's one of the best disaster movies ever made. It's just one of the best films in general. If you're really into movies, and you want to be out there, I want to see all the great films, all the legends, you have to see the original Godzilla. And if you still don't know why the 2014 Godzilla film just doesn't work, I hate to go back to it. But that was a movie that was trying to be more serious, trying to get back to kind of the disastrous effects of a giant monster. You can watch a 1954 film, you can watch a 2014 film. In 60 years, there's been no improvement. There just hasn't. Nothing could really top this original one. And again, don't watch the Raymond Burr version. That's just inferior. Raymond Burr is a great actor, but he gets in the way of the movie. That's frankly all I have to say. So there you are. I hope by listening to this, you've either remembered why Godzilla's great, or realized why I love Godzilla so much. Because Godzilla rocks. He's the best. Anyway, that concludes that bit. Let's talk about blog stuff. What's coming up? Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn. The 7th episode was released, I think, a week ago, and I just watched it. Review of that coming up. And this weekend, what movies are being released? It's basically just X-Men. Which might be good, might be bad. You never know with superhero films. I'm going to go see it. I don't know when I'm going to see it. I don't know when any of these reviews are up. I just started a new job, so that's why this is late. But then again, this is always late, so who knows. Another thing that's out in theaters that I could go see, it's out in Red Bank, is Chef. I described it in my upcoming films for May, and you can go look up what that is. It looks okay. It got kind of middling reviews, so I'm not sure if I'm going to go see it or not. I don't think there's any particular demand. So anyway, that's it for freelancing this week. I have been your humble BlueHighwind. You were very lovely space monkeys. It was great spending an evening with you. Thanks for listening. Good night.